Hi, Jeremy here, Modern Vitality. In today's video, sex drive and libido changes in long hauler syndrome, we're going to be talking about sex drive and libido changes, of course. Now with long haulers, there are all these symptoms, whole cluster of symptoms, and as of this recording, people are still figuring out exactly what fits in this clinical picture because it's relatively new. However, I will tell you, long haulers tends to fit the mold for a lot of these other complex chronic health conditions where we have a lot of experience working with hidden pathogens and the effects that drag over diseases have on the body. There are oftentimes symptoms like fatigue, exhaustion, weird pains, brain fog, right? Then there's like sleep trouble, digestive issues. With long haulers, you get all these circulatory issues. And one of the other factors is libido changes. Most times the libido tanks, right? Sex just becomes something that's not even on the radar. And then other times it can actually ratchet up and skyrocket. And I'm going to explain both of those, why it happens, and how you can start to rebalance this so that you can get this part of your life back. All right, let's get started. Complex chronic inflammatory conditions are definitely on the rise, and they take so much from us. Okay, we call it the shrinking world in the Modern Vitality Solutions and Support Group, right? It's a shrinking world, and it's all those things that you have to give up because of illness, meaning you have to start saying no to things you like to do, right? And sex, right? Having a healthy sex life, that's one of those things where, it can take that as well. And within the context of a relationship, especially a long-term relationship, this can be pretty damaging because people in relationships, they communicate with each other in various ways. They have these idea of love languages, right? And some people, physical intimacy is a very strong way to communicate love, to make sure that the relationship is strong. And so there can be a lot of mental gymnastics that happen, and sometimes, communication issues and weird fights, and people start getting all kinds of subconscious ideas about, jealousy or inadequacy. There's a lot of stuff that happens within a relationship when the sex drive just goes away. Okay, so when these conditions come in and we get inflamed, there is a reason why there may be libido changes. And this can be helpful if you have a partner or a spouse. You may want to show them this video or at least open a conversation with them where you start talking about these things so that you can start to relate and connect on a different level. Okay, I'm not a relationship counselor. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not giving you like advice officially in that way. I'm giving you a friendly suggestion based on my experience of walking people through this process over the past decade plus and seeing the impacts that these things have on their life, that you may want to open up this conversation with your spouse or partner, right? I'm also not your doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice, okay? I'm opening your mind, and we're going to be looking at whole systems and how to start to look at your whole body so you can start to get different symptoms to start to change, because these symptoms are signs, right? They're clues from your body. Low sex drive means something. Your body is telling you something. We need to listen to it, right? That's part of my job, is to interpret that, to read that language and help you learn to read that language yourself. So it can be detrimental to relationships, right? Where all of a sudden people start to feel like they're drifting apart a little bit, or like, oh, my spouse has a complex chronic inflammatory condition and their sex drive is really low, and I'm worried it's because they don't love me anymore, right? People project and put all kinds of stuff on there. So I would suggest communicating. Right? If you know this is happening to you, and I'm getting this out of the way now because it's important, and I don't want to forget to say this in this video. If you know this is something happening to you, do your best to reach out within your relationship and say, hey, I'm aware of this, right? And I know you're aware of it too. And here's what's going on. It's nothing to do with you. It's my body. And here's what's happening. And this is what I need to listen to right now. Okay. So that will help. That'll take a lot of the pressure off of the relationship so that you can then focus on healing yourself, which is going to then reward the whole relationship, okay? And then the other side is, if the libido gets crazy high, then sometimes people will, have extramarital affairs, right? They'll do all kinds of risky behavior. They'll do all these things, and it's actually quite biological, all right? So I'm going to talk about all this and more. We're probably going to get into some taboo and nuanced territory, but bear with me. If you're familiar with my work, then you know that I'm not really afraid to go to these places, because I think ignoring this stuff is a disservice to you on your healing journey. So here we go. If you look at your immune system, right, first, which, by the way, if you've been around my world for any length of time, stages 1, 2, 3, 4 in order. That's the way to start to repair your body and start to get rid of a lot of these problems that it's having, right? Stage 1, immune system. If you're inflamed, oftentimes you're inflamed because of hidden pathogens, right? Cooties, yucky things, okay? Whether it's viruses, bacteria, fungi, whatever, right? Whatever's going on, mold spores, there's something in your body that shouldn't be there, right? We all get exposed to these things. We're all alive. It happens to all of us. They could be inert substances like heavy metals, microplastics, right? It could be something that you got from a medical intervention, something injected into your body that doesn't belong there, that's not sitting well, right? Which I can't speak too much on this platform about these things. That's why we have our own separate group where we can talk openly, but you get my point. There's a lot of things that come into our body that don't need to be there. And now our immune system has to hunt it down and deal with it, right? That can be messy. That can cause a lot of inflammation. And one of the things we have is a protective mechanism. This is so cool, right? In our subconscious, the subconscious you have to respect, right? Because our body is constantly communicating with itself all the time, whether our conscious mind is privy to the conversation or not, right? Whether we're let in or not, it's happening. And our immune system and our subconscious are communicating. And when there is a lot of inflammation, which is usually a sign you've got pathogens and other things, right, that don't belong there, it makes your immune system feel like I'm getting inundated, I'm getting overrun with invaders. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to start to retreat from the outside world a little bit. Does this sound familiar? Right? We need to start limiting our exposure to other sources of potential pathogens, meaning saying no to things, right? One of those things is other people, because other people carry germs, right? Which is normally fine. I'm a big advocate of, getting my kids out there and getting their hands in the dirt and getting them around other kids and letting them have a runny nose and a fever, like all these things that our bodies need to strengthen up the immune system, right? Except for when the immune system's already overburdened. That's a different deal. Just like I'm a big fan of training my body and doing weird things with my feet so that my ankles learn different ways to have balance, right? And I'm strengthening up my ligaments and my tendons and all that. But if I had a broken ankle, I wouldn't be doing all that stuff. I would be working on healing it first to get it to that level. It's the same thing with the immune system. If the immune system, I don't want to say broken, right? Because it's like, that's a curse, right? But if the immune system's like broken, meaning it's bogged down, it's inflamed, it's smoldering, it doesn't know what to do next, and you've been in this state for a long time, right? It doesn't need more challenge. It doesn't need more people, more germs, right? It needs specificity. It needs interventions that actually dial it in so it can finish the job it started and then get on to the next thing. However, right, this all goes into our subconscious and we start, I don't know, I don't want to be around people. We start to become even more introverted. Okay, it happens. And that can really be painful because a lot of us enjoy, even those of us who identify as introverts, which I'm there with you, right? But we enjoy being around other people that are easy to get along with, right? We enjoy social interactions when it's like low friction, right? It's just like you hit a certain threshold where it's like, I don't want to be around anybody, because you guys are high maintenance. And I've become an introvert now because I don't have energy and bandwidth to deal with all that, right? That's the same thing your immune system's doing. I don't want to be around other people. They got a lot of germs. I don't have the bandwidth for it. I'm trying to heal my own thing, okay? And what's one of the most intimate, close encounters we can have with another germy body, right? Sex. So of course, you're having a subconscious dimming down of the sex drive. It's a protective mechanism. Think about that. This thing, right, that may be for a lot of people causing problems in their marriage or problems in their self-talk of where's my sex drive? Where'd it go? This is something I used to identify with and now it's not here. Or I wonder what my partner's thinking. Are they feeling abandoned? Are they going to cheat on me because I'm not meeting their needs? Like all this spiraling conversation comes from not understanding that the low sex drive is a protective mechanism that your body is creating to keep you away from more germs while you heal. I'm going to let that sink in. All right. Now, this is great because it's a short-term solution. It's built in, it's automatic. It just becomes a problem when these conditions start to stretch into years, months, decades, whatever. It's a long time now. And all of a sudden you're going, hey, I haven't had the sex drive in 20 years. My partner and I are barely intimate anymore. Right now it's become a problem. That's because we don't have the right interventions going yet on your stage 1 immune system to get this stuff cleared up. It's really quite fascinating. The other thing that I'm going to say about this is that sometimes the sex drive can go really, really high. All right. And what's going on there is that it's a source of energy, right? When we get these complex chronic health conditions, our energy level can start to bottom out. And what oftentimes happens is we have a certain hierarchy of where we're going to spend energy on. And actually our body is arranged. This is a tangent, but I find it interesting. Our body is arranged from the top down in terms of priority, meaning our brain at the top has to be alive to keep us alive. That's the deal. And then as we go down, the next level of urgency is like the heart and the lungs. right? We need to have our heart and our lungs working to keep us alive for the next 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 2 minutes, right? The immediacy, like if my brain stops working right now, I'm dead right now. If my heart stops working right now, I'm dead in a minute or two. You see, it's stretching out. And then we have our digestive organs, which we need to have those to keep us alive for the next days, weeks, whatever. If I don't eat anything, I can go like a month, right? So instant death, immediate death, dead in a month, right? And then we have further down, eventually we get away from the brain and we get to the reproductive organs, right? They're like all the way down. So when we look at how our body's going to allocate energy, it turns things off from the bottom up. You could see that in general, right? Moving that way. So it starts to lose function from the bottom up. When you have a budget, an energetic budget, right? You make budget cuts of the least important things for immediate survival. So that's what the body's doing, is turning off that libido, right? It's a fail-safe mechanism. It has us like where we can, avoid germs that way. And all, there's a lot of things to that, right? And it takes energy to have sex. That's part of it, right? Our body's got to be able to produce the right fluids and hormones and all that to get it going. Understandable, right? It didn't make the budget because energy's low. Okay, that's one. But what also can happen is that people sometimes will use that, right? The actual act of excitement around intimacy, especially with a new partner, right? To create energy to draw off of. Now, the similarity to this is when college kids will wait and cram for an exam. Okay, give me a deadline, and then I stay up, pull an all-nighter the night before because the deadline's coming, and that urgency gives me the adrenaline to get the energy to then write that long paper. And even though it's bad for me to stay up all night and do this, right? I use that deadline as my adrenaline source, and I ride the adrenaline to get the work done. Okay, now adrenaline's not the fuel for long-term work, right? Adrenaline's not a long-term fuel. It's like starting a fire with gasoline, right? You need to have, if you're going to start a fire, you need to have like newspaper and cardboard and kindling and all that. Do it right? You can't just pour gas on something because eventually it burns out, and then it's, if you didn't build the rest of the fire, there's nothing to burn. So adrenaline works like that. And just like college kids waiting until that deadline's coming and then riding the adrenaline to get the work done, right? As opposed to just steadily putting in the time. We have the same thing where people can use, like if they have a complex chronic inflammatory condition that's dropped their energy level down, they can actually use sex as an adrenalizing function, especially sex with like new partners, which sometimes people will do this and their marriage falls apart, it's actually more common than you think. And I'm not here to vilify. There's no judgment, right? It's not, I'm just saying clinically, this is what's underneath that behavior. This is the subconscious biological driving force, is that new people, flings, like all this stuff, sometimes drug use, like all this kind of stuff gets the adrenaline going. It's exciting. And that's sometimes the only way we can get any energy at all. Otherwise, it's like we're exhausted. So people find that as a way to self-medicate. So even though the libido tries to dim itself down, you can manually override that and put yourself in especially like novel and risky situations, right? Especially sexually. And then that will spike that up, right? Which gives you this feeling of energy, even though it's just as temporary as pouring gasoline on, a rock and trying to have a fire that way, right? It's going to burn for just a second, and then there's nothing under there, right? So this is why that's happening. I hope this is helpful for you to understand. And again, in this world here that I've created, these taboo topics need to be opened up with empathy and curiosity. And this isn't judgment, shame, whatever else. This is a place to come and learn why these things are happening. So if the libido is getting low, that's normal with these. And we know why now, because we're trying to sequester away from other people and we're running out of energy as it is, right? We have energy for immediate survival, not long-term reproduction. That's what's happening. And we're trying to stay away from germs, right? And then number two is that if we are starting to do riskier things and like doing all this like sexual exploration, or the libido feels like it's just skyrocketed, that's one of the reasons why, is that we're hacking into that to try to get some adrenaline to live off of. Okay, so this is important to understand. Now, what I've noticed from the people I've worked with is that when we work through this process systematically of going, okay, we're going to take the immune system, we're going to focus on that, we're going to emphasize that, we're going to work on getting the pathogen load down, we're going to work on getting the immune specificity, meaning that your immune system gets cleaner about what it's attacking, right? So not boosting it and causing autoimmune issues, and not suppressing it and just letting everything just stay in there, right? You actually get this thing specified, immune specificity. You can look this up. It's a great term. And get that happening, now you can move into stage 2 where you work on your digestion, and now you're absorbing your food better. You're getting more energy from your nutrition, right? And then stage 3 is where we start working on neuroadrenal, where now all of a sudden our nervous system is communicating with the rest of our body in a cleaner way because we have more space, because we're not so stressed, because we're feeling better. And then number 4 is blood circulation, where we start to turn up the circulation to the smaller parts of the body like the fingers and toes, right? If you have cold hands and cold feet, you have poor blood circulation, right? So we start to get those warmed up. But what else happens when the hands and feet warm up? The brain gets more blood, the genitals get more blood, right? Everybody's a little more alive. And these are the reports back I get, like from members in our group and in our program, and they start saying things which they're shy about at first admitting, but because I've created a culture where we're looking at this and we realize how important it is to have a healthy sexual life if we want, that people come back and they start sharing their wins about how they've regained intimacy with their partner, how they're having orgasms again, how they have a certain interest again. You know, they've been married for like 40 years and all of a sudden they're flirting in the kitchen where they haven't been, feeling frisky like that, right? These are great. It lights me up. Okay. Healing isn't just about, lab tests and all this dry biomarkers and stuff like that. Healing is about getting your life back in all of its facets. So being able to travel and, be there for your family and your friends and being able to go do things and DIY projects and all that. And also having sex, right? It's another sign that things are coming along and you're healing. It's very, very important. So if you're struggling with complex chronic health conditions, please know you don't have to do it alone. We've got a great group. It's off big tech. It's a private chat group and we keep it pretty cozy. There's like 100 to 200 people max in there. I like to know who's in there and be able to help people and answer your specific questions. We've got a whole vault of interactive videos, things that I don't put on YouTube. They're just for our guests and members of our group that'll help you get sorted out on what your next steps should be. You can learn more about the specific types of herbs we use, breathing exercises. You can basically ask me anything in there. It's a great place. Everybody's very positive. And even if you are relatively introverted, I think you'll like it in there. You're in good company. We've got a lot of introverts and, there's no pressure, to be in the spotlight. You can come and learn and ask questions and share your wins as you go. It's a free group to join. The link is in the description. And like I said, it does fill up. I'll do my best. If I see your application and you look like a good fit, I'll do my best to get you in within our next monthly cohort. So hopefully it's not more than a month, maybe 2 months of wait to get in, but I'll do my best with that. And in the meantime, you might consider subscribing to this channel so you can get more helpful health information like this video, right? Instead of binge watching Netflix or some other programming, right, to keep you consuming and scrolling, you could actually be learning things to help your body heal and have a bigger impact on getting your life back. That's my hope for you. All right, let's get you feeling better. Cheers.